The grand hall of the alien council was quiet, the kind of silence that only came in the aftermath of a battle, the kind that spoke of plans laid and secrets hidden. The room, a colossal structure, was made of translucent alien materials that shimmered faintly under the light of the distant stars. The council members, representatives of many races across the galaxy, sat on their floating thrones, their eyes fixed on the figure standing before them, that Ambassador Jacob Corbin, humanity's lone diplomat, stood at the center of the room, unaware of the storm that was brewing around him. To the council members, he was a symbol of Earth's desperation. The human race had been given a seat at the galactic table after years of conflict, negotiations, and survival. They were small, they were fragile, but their potential was undeniable. Earth had sent their best diplomat to represent them, a man who had survived countless near-death situations, a man who had seen horrors beyond imagination. But none of that had prepared him for this moment. Jacob adjusted his suit, a sleek, advanced technology crafted by human engineers. It was designed to be both an ambassadorial tool and a protection system, capable of enhancing his strength, healing minor wounds, and amplifying his intellect. What Jacob didn't know, however, was that the suit was hiding far more than just an advanced technology. It was hiding the weapon that would change everything. And the council? They had no idea they were about to attack the very thing that could obliterate them. "You've come to represent humanity," the Zorani counselor, a towering creature with 3 eyes, said with a voice that rumbled in Jacob's bones. "But you don't realize, do you, that the galaxy has no room for your kind? You humans are a threat to the balance. You must be removed." Jacob paused, his heart skipping a beat. This wasn't what he had been briefed on. This wasn't a simple diplomatic meeting. Something was off, and he could feel it deep in his gut. The words seemed like a passing remark at first, but the way they were delivered, the heavy silence that followed, this wasn't just political rhetoric. "What do you mean?" Jacob asked, his voice steady but laced with unease. "I thought we were here to discuss trade agreements and the future of peaceful relations." The council members exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between them. They knew something he didn't, something far darker. "Your people are dangerous," the Zorani continued, his 3 eyes narrowing. "We've been monitoring your progress for decades. You think you're ready for galactic inclusion, but you're too young, too unpredictable. You need to be stopped before your reckless ambitions destroy everything." Jacob's mind raced as he processed the words. He knew that humans had a reputation in the galaxy for their tenacity and survival instinct, but he had never imagined that such strength would be viewed as a threat. He was here to negotiate peace, to prove that humanity wasn't dangerous. But it seemed that the council had already decided the verdict. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, a sudden loud noise echoed through the hall, a deep rumbling that shook the entire building. The lights flickered, and for a moment, the counselors shifted uneasily in their thrones. Something was wrong, something he had not been prepared for. Jacob's hand instinctively moved to his suit, tapping a hidden control. The suit responded instantly, scanning for any threats. "Something's happening," Jacob muttered to himself, scanning the alien counselors. His senses were alert, and though the threat wasn't obvious yet, he could feel it. This wasn't just a negotiation gone wrong. This was an ambush. At that moment, the Zorani counselor stood up from his seat, his gaze sharp and cold. "It's too late for you, human," he declared. "Your people have failed to recognize their place. You will never rise above the level of mere pests. You think your technology will save you, but it won't." Jacob froze as he saw the council members activate their own hidden devices. The temperature in the room began to drop, and an unnatural hum filled the air. His suit's internal systems buzzed, warning him of incoming hostile energy. The council had moved faster than he could react. Before he could even speak, the room was filled with a flash of blinding light. The alien weaponry there, Coordinated strikes had taken shape. Jacob's body went into automatic defense mode, the suit absorbing energy to counteract the assault. But this wasn't just a physical attack. It was an attack on everything Jacob had worked for. The political structure he had fought so hard to build for humanity was crumbling in front of him. The council was more prepared than Jacob had anticipated. His suit absorbed most of the energy from the first blast, but the second hit landed with a force that knocked him off his feet. His body was thrown backward, his vision spinning. His heart raced. The suit kept him alive, but it was clear that this wasn't just an attack on him, it was an assault on everything he represented. Jacob barely managed to keep his balance as the alien energy surged around him. "Why?" he gasped. "Why are you doing this?" The Zorani counselor sneered. "You were never meant to succeed. We never intended for you to return to your people. You are nothing but a puppet, and we will pull the strings until you break." The words hit Jacob harder than the blasts. He had been played. But what he didn't know was that his suit, his life-saving technology, was more than just a tool for defense. It was also the key to his survival. The final blow came quickly. Before Jacob could react, another burst of energy coursed through his suit, sending him into unconsciousness. The last thing he saw was the look of satisfaction in the counselor's eyes. But as his body collapsed, something inside the suit activated on its own, a failsafe, a hidden power source designed by humanity's brightest minds. The suit was now fully engaged. And Jacob Corbin, unaware of it, was about to become humanity's most lethal weapon. Jacob Corbin's consciousness was a swirling fog of confusion and pain. His body felt like it was submerged in water, every movement slow and heavy. His limbs were stiff, and his head throbbed with a dull ache. For a few moments, all he could hear was the faint hum of energy coursing through his suit. Then, slowly the world around him began to come into focus. His eyes fluttered open, and he gasped, pulling in a breath as the suit's internal systems automatically pumped oxygen into his lungs. The cold metal of the council hall floor was hard against his back, but there was no time to rest. He needed to move. They had attacked him, but why? Why had the alien council turned on him so quickly? He tried to sit up, but his body felt sluggish, like a machine that hadn't been powered in years. His fingers twitched, and as if responding to his will, the suit began to realign itself, healing the worst of the damage. The suit's nanotechnology flowed beneath his skin, repairing the damage, reviving him. But it wasn't just repairing. His body, something inside the suit was changing. The power was shifting. What's happening? Jacob whispered to himself, his voice hoarse. The last thing he remembered was being struck by the council's deadly energy blasts. But now there was a strange new sensation, a surge of power deep within him. The suit was alive, more alive than it had ever been. Jacob's mind raced as his suit ran diagnostic systems. The numbers on his display showed his vitals were stable, but something was wrong. The power systems were running at full capacity, far beyond the normal limits. He was stronger, faster, and more resilient than ever before, but he hadn't triggered any of these systems. The suit had done it on its own, survival mode. He muttered, trying to piece together the fragments of his understanding. His suit wasn't just a tool for protection, it was adapting, evolving, and it was doing so in a way he couldn't fully comprehend. Then it hit him. The council had thought they were destroying him, but in their haste, they had triggered something far more dangerous. He wasn't just a diplomat anymore, he was something else. Something with the power to change the fate of Earth, and perhaps the galaxy. Jacob pulled himself to his feet, shaking off the disorientation. The hall around him was in chaos. The walls were scorched and cracked, a testament to the violence that had just transpired. The council members were gone, either retreating to safety or still watching from their hidden control rooms. They hadn't anticipated his survival. And they definitely hadn't prepared for what was about to happen next. His hands clenched into fists, and a surge of power ran through his veins. The suit responded instantly, amplifying the energy, and Jacob felt the full weight of the strength coursing through him. Every fiber of his being felt alive, more alive than it had ever been before. The suit had somehow unlocked his full potential. And now he was more than just a diplomat. He was a weapon. "Where are they?" Jacob muttered to himself, his voice low and determined. The council had tried to kill him, and now he would make them pay. The suit's advanced sensors scanned the surroundings, locating the nearest alien life forms. His heart beat faster as the images flashed before his eyes. A group of council guards, still lingering near the outer chambers, unaware of his awakening. "Time to make them understand," Jacob said quietly, his voice filled with cold resolve. With one swift motion, he leapt into action. The suit's nanotechnology enhanced his reflexes, allowing him to move faster than any normal human could. His limbs felt like they were made of steel, his strength enhanced by the suit's internal systems. Jacob sprinted down the hall, his footsteps barely making a sound on the smooth alien floors. "Do you see it now, human?" The Zorani's voice echoed through the chamber. The counselor had not left, but seemed to be watching from a safe distance, his voice a mere whisper against the overwhelming presence of the shadowed figure. "This is not about your petty war with us. This is about the end of your kind. You've just opened the door to an ancient evil, and now you must face it." Jacob gritted his teeth, his muscles tense as he adjusted his stance. "You've been lying to us the whole time, haven't you?" He snapped, his voice dripping with disdain. "You didn't care about peace. You just wanted us out of the way before this. This thing showed up." The entity before him let out a low, guttural growl that echoed through the chamber. Its form expanded, dark tendrils reaching toward the walls, grasping at the very fabric of reality. The air vibrated with an almost unbearable pressure. Jacob's suit buzzed in warning as it tried to stabilize him, but even with the technology at his command, there was something in this presence that felt beyond any threat he had faced. No one truly understands what lies beyond the veil of the galaxy, the Zorani continued, his voice heavy with a kind of resigned satisfaction. "We thought we could protect the galaxy. We thought we could keep the balance, but we failed. You were our last hope. And now you've sealed our fate. You've made us its target." Jacob's eyes narrowed, the full realization dawning on him. "What do you mean, our last hope? What the hell is this thing?" The dark figure pulsed with energy, its form shifting once again as a voice, cold and distant, echoed from its depths. "I am the Evervale," it intoned, its voice a chorus of countless whispers, each one a thread in the tapestry of time. "I am the one who has watched, the one who has waited. And now, humanity has opened the door. You are the key to my ascension. You are the harbinger of the end." Jacob's breath caught in his throat. "The end? You mean ... the end of Earth?" The Evervale's shape seemed to grow even darker, its presence suffocating. "The end of all that exists. You stand in the presence of eternity itself. The galaxy, your world, your people, all of it will fall. Your humanity will be consumed, and all that remains will be darkness." Jacob's mind raced. He had been thrown into the fire, given unimaginable power through his suit, but nothing had prepared him for this. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting for the very existence of everything he had ever known. And the worst part? He had unknowingly played a part in unleashing this destruction. But one thing still burned brightly within him. Humanity had survived so far because of its resilience. And he wasn't about to let that change now. The Evervale surged forward, and Jacob instinctively stepped into battle mode. The suit's systems flared to life, transforming him into a blur of motion. Energy blasts and shields materialized around. him as he darted toward the dark figure, trying to match the creature's speed, but he couldn't seem to get a direct hit. Every time he struck, the energy was absorbed into the dark void of the Evervale's form. "You cannot stop me," the creature's voice mocked as it swirled around him, its energy feeding off his attacks. "You are nothing but a vessel. You cannot understand the power I command." Jacob pushed forward, his willpower stronger than ever. "Maybe not, but I'm human. And we don't just give up." The suit's power surged as Jacob's thoughts focused. His body was moving on instinct now, his reflexes enhanced beyond anything his mind could comprehend. He knew that this creature was something beyond comprehension, but he wasn't going to back down. He wasn't going to let humanity fall because of some ancient force. Then, just as the Evervale's shadowy tendrils began to overwhelm him, he noticed something. The creature's energy was unstable, flickering in the dark space around him. It wasn't perfect, like the perfect void of a black hole. There were cracks in its energy. The more he attacked, the more the cracks deepened. Jacob's mind locked onto the idea. If he could break its concentration, if he could force it to expel some of its power, maybe he could weaken it enough to fight back. He wasn't sure how, but it was the only chance he had. "Come on then," he yelled, charging forward with everything the suit could provide. His fists glowed with concentrated energy, and he let loose everything he had, directing it into the cracks in the Evervale's form. The creature screeched, a sound that rattled the very foundations of the chamber, as if it could feel its own destruction approaching. Jacob didn't hesitate. He pushed forward, pressing the attack until the cracks were impossible to ignore. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted from the creature, and for a moment, Jacob thought he had failed. But when the light faded, he found himself standing in the center of a now still room. The Evervale was gone. Did I do it?" Jacob gasped, staring at the space where the darkness had once been. The Zorani's voice echoed again, softer this time. "No, you haven't defeated it. You've only delayed it. The true battle is coming, Jacob Corbin. And now you've made yourself its target." Jacob looked around the room, his mind reeling. The battle wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Jacob stood in the remnants of the chamber, his breath ragged, his body still tingling with the aftereffects of the battle. He could feel the vibrations of the suit still adjusting to his movements, the energy flowing through him like a constant current. He had fought the Evervale, or at least he thought he had. But the Zorani's words echoed in his mind, filling him with dread. "You haven't defeated it. You've only delayed it." The reality of the situation hit Jacob hard. The creature, the Evervale, wasn't something to be destroyed easily. It was a force of pure destruction, a cosmic entity that had existed long before any of them had even come into being. And now, thanks to him, it had been awakened. Humanity wasn't just facing an invasion. They were facing an existential threat, a force that could unravel everything they had fought for. His hands clenched at his sides. The Zorani had played their part in this disaster, using humanity as pawns in their own twisted game of cosmic survival. And now Jacob was left holding the shattered pieces of a battle he wasn't prepared for. He had been thrust into this war with no choice but to fight. But now that he knew what he was up against, it felt like there was no way out. "Focus, Corbin," Jacob muttered to himself, shaking his head. "Focus. You're alive. You have the suit. You can still fight. You have to." His eyes scanned the room one last time. The chamber that had once been a symbol of diplomacy and peace was now a battlefield. The Zorani Council was nowhere to be seen, and the alien forces had withdrawn, but their betrayal still stung. He had been sent here to negotiate, to form alliances, but now everything had changed. His mission was no longer about peace, it was about survival. Jacob's thoughts turned to Earth. He had to warn them. The Evervale wasn't just a threat to the Galactic Council, it was a threat to humanity. And now that he had been marked as its enemy, Earth's survival depended on him. But how could he fight something like the Everveil? The entity was ancient, beyond comprehension. It wasn't something you could fight with weapons or tactics alone. Jacob. A voice crackled in his earpiece, snapping him out of his reverie. It was a familiar voice, Commander Sarah Thompson, one of Earth's top military leaders. Are you there? We've been tracking your location. What happened? The feed cut out. Jacob exhaled, forcing the fear and uncertainty out of his mind. I'm here. And I need to talk to you, Sarah. It's worse than we thought. The Council, they didn't just attack me. They're not the real enemy. There's something worse. There was a long pause on the other end before Sarah spoke again. What do you mean? We've been monitoring the battle. What's going on, Jacob? Jacob took a deep breath, steadying his voice. It's called the Everveil. It's an ancient force, something the Council has been trying to keep hidden. I didn't defeat it, I just delayed it. And now, it's coming for everything. The Council was just a tool to keep it at bay. Sarah's voice was tinged with disbelief. You're saying the entire galaxy has been in a holding pattern because of this ... thing, and now it's free? Yes, Jacob replied, his voice filled with the weight of the realization. And now, Earth is in its sights. We're the next target. There was a long silence on the other end, and Jacob could almost hear the gears turning in Sarah's mind as she processed the information. What do we do now? She asked, her voice quiet but resolute. I'm coming back to Earth. I need to regroup. We need to prepare. The Everveil isn't something we can fight with conventional weapons. We need to find a way to understand it, to learn its weaknesses. And we need to do it fast. Understood, Sarah replied, her voice firm. We'll be waiting for you. Earth's defense systems are ready, but we'll need everything you've got. Get back here in one piece. Jacob nodded, though he knew Sarah couldn't see him. I will. The connection cut out, leaving Jacob alone in the desolate chamber. He stood there for a moment, gathering his thoughts. He was no longer just a diplomat. He was humanity's last hope, and that weight settled heavily on his shoulders. Time to go, he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Jacob turned and made his way out of the council chamber, the suit's energy hum filling the silence. As he moved, the ship that had once brought him here was still intact, floating outside the ruined chamber. He had no time to waste. The Everveil was already on the move, and if humanity had any chance of surviving, he had to find a way to stop it. The guards, armed with energy weapons, were still standing guard, looking out toward the main council chamber. They had no idea what was about to hit them. Jacob's heart thudded with a new kind of energy. This wasn't the fear he had felt in the past, nor the helplessness of an ordinary human. This was pure power, the kind of power that made him feel unstoppable. In an instant, Jacob was upon them. The guards turned, but it was too late. He moved faster than they could react, his hands locking around the first alien's throat before he even had time to draw his weapon. The alien struggled, but Jacob squeezed tighter, his suit amplifying his strength. The guard went limp in his hands. He dropped the alien's body to the ground without a second thought, his eyes locked onto the remaining guards. They raised their weapons, but Jacob was already moving. He darted toward them, using the momentum of his enhanced strength to tackle one guard to the floor. Another guard fired, but Jacob deflected the blast with his suit's enhanced shields, turning the energy back on the attacker. The alien collapsed in a heap, stunned by its own blast. Jacob was barely breathing hard, his heart rate steady as the battle continued in his mind. These aliens, once so confident in their superiority, were no match for the raw power that Jacob now wielded. The final guard attempted to escape, but Jacob was already on him. He reached out, grabbing the alien by the arm and twisting it behind its back. The guard screamed in pain, but Jacob didn't hesitate. He lifted the alien off the ground and slammed it into the nearest wall, knocking it unconscious. With the last of the guards incapacitated, Jacob took a breath. his heart still racing with adrenaline. He was alive, and now he was ready. The suit had transformed him into something more than human, more than a diplomat. He was a warrior, but this was only the beginning. The council had attacked him, thinking he was nothing more than an obstacle. But they had awakened something far more dangerous. Jacob was now a threat that would change the course of humanity's future. And he would make the council regret ever underestimating Earth. "Time to take this fight to them," Jacob muttered, his eyes blazing with newfound determination. Jacob Corbin stood alone in the wreckage of the alien council chamber, his pulse still quickened from the confrontation. The alien guards lay unconscious or dead around him, their once pristine uniforms now stained with their own blood. He was no longer the diplomat who had walked into this room just hours before. He was something else now. Something far more dangerous. The power coursing through him from his suit, the power that had, awakened without warning, had changed everything. For the first time, Jacob allowed himself to pause and look around the chamber. The walls, once shimmering with delicate alien designs, were now cracked and scorched. The room that had been built to hold some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy now felt like a tomb. Jacob couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just an attack on him. It was an attack on humanity itself. "They tried to kill me," Jacob muttered under his breath, his voice steady despite the anger bubbling beneath his calm exterior. But they didn't realize what they were dealing with. They've made a mistake, a big one. But his thoughts weren't entirely consumed by vengeance. There was something else, something gnawing at the back of his mind. He had learned too much in a short amount of time. The alien council had known about Earth for decades. They had been watching, tracking the rise of humanity. But they had underestimated one thing: humanity's potential for survival. And now that he had become their unintended weapon, they would learn that the hard way. Jacob's suit was still running diagnostics, analyzing his new capabilities. It was no longer just a simple tool of diplomacy. It had become an instrument of war, transforming him into something almost unrecognizable. As the systems continued to process, Jacob began to feel a growing unease. He wasn't entirely sure what had happened, but one thing was clear: the suit had been more than just a means of protection. It had unlocked something deep inside him, something beyond mere survival, something dangerous. "Jacob Corbin." A voice suddenly echoed through the room, its origin coming from an unseen speaker. It was cold and mechanical, an unmistakable warning tone. "You are not the only one who has been changed." Jacob's heart skipped a beat. He knew that voice. It was the voice of the Zorani, the three-eyed counselor who had been the first to condemn humanity. The words were a trap. He could feel it in his gut. "You have taken lives," the Zorani's voice continued, the tone more sinister now. "But what you don't understand is that you're not the true threat. We've let you play your little game, but now you've crossed a line." Jacob's hand instinctively moved to the controls on his suit. The suit's internal system responded with a soft hum, ready to engage. But Jacob held back. This wasn't just about physical power anymore. The council was about to show him a side of this war that he hadn't anticipated. He was no longer just fighting for his life. He was fighting for humanity's future. "Who are you really?" Jacob demanded, his voice cutting through the silence. "Why did you do this? What is this all about?" The counselor's voice became even colder. "You're not the only one who has discovered the truth, Earthling. You think you've become something more, something unstoppable, but you haven't seen what's out there, what the real enemy is. The council isn't the true power. We are merely a tool, a shield to protect the galaxy from what's lurking in the shadows." Jacob narrowed his eyes. "Shadows?" he repeated. "What do you mean?" "The true enemy," the Zorani said slowly, almost as if savoring the moment, "is something older than your people, something older than all of us. It's been hiding in the deepest corners of space, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now, Thanks to you, the time has come." The words sent a chill down Jacob's spine. He had no idea what the Zorani was talking about. But he knew one thing for certain. Whatever it was something far more dangerous than the council itself. The Zorani continued, "You've awakened something, Jacob Corbin. You may have become a weapon, but the real danger is what you've just unleashed. And now you'll have to face the consequences of your actions." Before Jacob could respond, the room shook again, this time with more intensity. The walls trembled and the lights flickered. The hum of energy in the air grew louder. It wasn't just the suit, something else was happening. Suddenly, the floor beneath him cracked open and a deep, black abyss appeared. A strange, pulsating energy emanated from the darkness, its pull strong and relentless. Jacob felt a surge of panic. The Zorani had been right. There was something much larger than him involved in this war. Something far beyond his understanding. From the depths of the darkness, a figure slowly emerged, a being unlike anything Jacob had ever seen before. Its form was shifting, like shadows were bending and twisting around it. It had no defined shape, just an overwhelming sense of power and malice that filled the room. Jacob felt the suit's systems overload, the power struggling to keep up with the force in front of him. Double quotes, what? What is that? Jacob whispered, unable to take his eyes off. The entity. That, the Zorani's voice replied coldly, is the true enemy. The one who has been pulling the strings all along. The one who's been watching, waiting for you to awaken it. Jacob's mind raced. What was this thing? And how had it been connected to the Council's actions all along? He thought the aliens were his enemies, but this was something beyond comprehension. The Zorani had been right. The Council was merely a small piece in a much larger, far darker game. The room seemed to close in around him as the figure's presence filled the chamber. Jacob's suit hummed in response, ready to fight, but deep down, he knew this was not a battle he could win alone. He wasn't just facing an enemy. He was facing the future of humanity itself. The stakes had grown infinitely higher. Humanity may have survived this far, the Zorani's voice echoed, but the true battle is just beginning. And you, Jacob Corbin, are the key. The words hit him hard, but before he could react, the shadowed figure surged forward, its form twisting and pulling in the darkness. And just like that, the real war had begun. The entity in front of Jacob Corbin was not like anything he had ever encountered. Its form was an endless, shifting mass of dark energy, pulsating and twisting in ways that defied logic. His suit's enhanced systems ran diagnostics at a frantic pace, but the readings made no sense. There was nothing to analyze, no tangible source of the energy that he could fight against. All he could sense was pure malevolent power, the kind of force that had been quietly waiting, watching, and now, finally, had been unleashed. Jacob felt a chill run through him, despite the suit's best attempts to regulate his temperature. The air in the chamber grew thick, as if the very atmosphere had been poisoned. The dark figure surged forward with impossible speed, its shape rippling like smoke, before it seemed to coalesce into a form with some semblance of a humanoid shape, though distorted, its eyes glowing with an eerie, unnatural light. The ground beneath Jacob's feet shook, and he instinctively stepped back, raising his hands, ready to engage the suit's combat protocols. His mind raced. This wasn't the alien council anymore. This was something worse. The Zorani had warned him, but he hadn't fully understood what they had meant. And now it was too late to turn back. The suit's systems analyzed his path as he approached the exit, and for the first time, Jacob felt a sense of clarity. The Everveil was not just a creature of destruction, it was a force of chaos, one that could unravel the fabric of space and time itself. If he was going to stop it, he would need more than just firepower. He would need to understand its nature, its origins, and its weaknesses. But there was one thing Jacob was sure of. Humanity wouldn't go down without a fight. He had seen it in the eyes of every person who had ever stood against impossible odds. And as long as there was breath in his body, he would make sure that humanity had a chance to fight back. The journey back to Earth would take time. But he knew he didn't have the luxury of time. The Evervale was already out there, its dark influence spreading through the galaxy like a virus. And with every passing second, it was getting closer to Earth. As Jacob climbed aboard the ship, the engines roared to life, and he set course for home. He wasn't just going back to Earth, he was going back to save it. And this time, he would make sure the Evervale never had a chance to rise again. Jacob's ship streaked through the vast emptiness of space, the stars outside a blur of motion as he made his way toward Earth. Inside the vessel, the hum of the engines was the only sound that broke the silence. The suit that now encased him felt like an extension of his own body, its power still surging through him. The energy was different now, stronger, more controlled. But even with all the technological advances at his disposal, Jacob couldn't shake the gnawing feeling of dread that tugged at him. The Evervale was out there. He had delayed it barely, but now it was free, and its darkness spread like a living plague across the galaxy. Jacob had seen its power firsthand. It was beyond anything humanity or any other race could hope to fight. And yet, he was Earth's best shot. No one else had survived its assault. No one else had unlocked the potential that was now buried deep within him, but he wasn't sure how much longer he could hold it together. The truth was, he didn't know how to defeat the Evervale. It was a cosmic entity, older than any of the civilizations he had encountered, and its very presence seemed to warp reality. The more he thought about it, the more hopeless the situation seemed. How could a single human, armed with nothing but a suit and determination, stand up to something like that? His mind kept racing as the ship's autopilot guided him closer to Earth. Time was running out. The Evervale was coming. He needed to figure out a way to stop it before it reached his home planet, before it could snuff out everything humanity had built. It wasn't just a fight for Earth anymore. It was a fight for the very soul of existence itself. The ship's communication system suddenly crackled to life, cutting through Jacob's thoughts. "Jacob, do you read me?" Sarah Thompson's voice came through, her tone urgent. "We've been tracking you. The defense systems are ready on Earth, but we need you here now. We've already detected anomalies around the outer reaches of the solar system." Jacob's heart skipped a beat. The Evervale was already here. "I'm coming, Sarah," he replied, his voice steady despite the rising anxiety in his chest. "I'll be there soon. Just hold on." He had no more time for hesitation. He had to trust that his suit, the weapon he had become, would be enough to help Earth fight back. As he gazed at the faint blue glow of Earth growing larger on the flyaway view screen, a plan began to form in his mind. The battle wasn't just about brute strength. It was about understanding the enemy, finding its weakness. If he could somehow learn more about the Evervale, maybe he could turn the tide in humanity's favor. The ship's systems flashed with warnings. The anomalies Sarah had mentioned were now visible, a dark, swirling mass of energy at the edge of the solar system. It wasn't just a storm. It was the Evervale, its form spreading like ink in water, reaching for Earth. Jacob's fingers flew over the controls, adjusting his course. The Evervale had arrived. And there was no more time for preparation. It was time to face the creature. Head dash on dot as his ship passed through the final layers of the atmosphere. Jacob's mind focused on the singular task ahead. Protect Earth. He couldn't afford to fail. Humanity was depending on him. Within minutes, the ship entered the planet's atmosphere, breaking through the clouds to reveal the chaos below. Massive energy storms raged across the skies, and dark tendrils of the Evervale had already begun to touch the surface. He could see the distant glow of military defenses, but they seemed futile against the overwhelming darkness that had descended upon the world. The military might of Earth, which had once seemed so powerful, was now powerless against this ancient force. The Evervale's shadow stretched across the globe, and with it, an eerie silence spread like the calm before a storm. "Sarah, I'm landing now," Jacob said into his comms, trying to mask the fear in his voice. "Prepare the ground teams. We'll need everything." "Roger that," Sarah replied. "We've mobilized all defense units." "But Jacob, be careful. We don't know the full extent of what this thing can do." Jacob's gaze hardened as he looked out. The ship's window. Earth's fate was in his hands now, and there was no turning back. He could feel the suit's systems hum with power as he landed in a military base, the ground shuddering beneath him. His heart pounded in his chest as the doors to the ship opened, and he stepped into the chaos. The world around him was a blur of movement. Soldiers were running in all directions, preparing for the fight of their lives. Airships flew overhead, firing at the dark clouds that swirled above. But the sky was full of ominous shape-shadows that seemed to defy the natural laws of physics, bending and shifting with an intelligence that sent a shiver down his spine. Jacob adjusted his suit, the energy flowing more easily now, as if responding to the urgency of the situation. His breath came in shallow bursts as he walked toward the command center, his mind focused on one thing: to stop the Evervale. Inside, Sarah stood at the helm, surrounded by a team of engineers and military officers. Their faces were grim, but they were all ready to fight. Sarah's eyes locked with Jacob's as he entered, her expression hard but determined. "We've got about an hour before the Evervale reaches the capital," Sarah said, urgency in her voice. "We've activated all defense systems, but we're still figuring out how to counteract its power. It's not like anything we've seen before." Jacob nodded, his mind already working on a plan. "I'll take care of the Evervale. We need to disrupt its power source. That's where I come in." Sarah's eyebrows furrowed. "How do you plan to do that? It's not like any weapon we have can even make a dent in it." "I know," Jacob sighed, his voice steady, "but I think I've figured it out. The Evervale feeds on the energy of the universe, right? But it has to be anchored to something. If I can disrupt that anchor, maybe we can sever its connection to our world." He wasn't sure if it would work, but he had no choice. The Evervale was out there, and it was unstoppable unless he could figure out a way to sever its connection to Earth. He had to be the one to do it. "We'll need backup," Sarah said, her voice tight with fear but filled with determination. "You won't be able to do it alone," Jacob nodded. "I'll be in the field, but I'm going in first. I'll signal when I need the backup." With that, he turned and walked toward the exit. The suit hummed as it powered up, its systems coming online at full capacity. Earth was under siege, and Jacob Corbin was the only one who could stop the Evervale. As he stepped outside, he looked up at the swirling mass of darkness in the sky. The creature was waiting, watching, and Jacob wasn't about to let it have Earth. Not while he was still breathing. The darkness of the Evervale loomed above Earth, like a great storm that threatened to consume everything in its path. Jacob Corbin stood on the battlefield, his body encased in the powerful suit that had once been a symbol of humanity's diplomacy. Now, it was the last line of defense between Earth and annihilation. The air around him crackled with raw energy as the sky above swirled with dark clouds, lightning flashing in violent bursts. Jacob's suit hummed with power, its systems coursing through him, amplifying his strength, speed, and intellect. But despite all the advanced technology, despite the immense power he now held, there was one undeniable truth that gnawed at him. He was facing an entity that had existed before the galaxy itself, something that bent reality to its will. Evervale was not just a force. It was a cosmic nightmare, a creature that consumed everything in its path, tearing apart the very fabric of space and time. And now it was here, hovering above the Earth, its dark tendrils reaching down toward the planet like the fingers of an ancient god. Jacob took a deep breath and tightened his grip on the controls embedded in his suit's gauntlet. His mind raced as he replayed the plan that had been hastily formed back at the military base. Sarah and the others had prepped Earth's defenses, but Jacob knew this fight couldn't be won with firepower alone. The Evervale fed off energy, and that was where he came in. If he could disrupt its anchor to this universe, its connection to the material plane, maybe, just maybe, he could stop it. "Jacob," Sarah's voice crackled over the comms, bringing him back to reality. "We've got your back. But this is it. We're throwing everything we have at it, but the Evervale is feeding on the energy we're trying to use against it. We need you to find its core." Jacob's heart raced as he gazed up at the swirling mass of darkness in the sky. "I'm on it. Keep the backup ready. I'll signal when I need you." Without another word, he activated his suit's thrusters and shot into the air, leaving the ground far below. The dark clouds swirled around him, the Evervale's presence oppressive. The closer he got to the source of the energy, the more overwhelming it became. The suit's systems flashed warnings as the Evervale's tendrils reached out, trying to block his path, but Jacob powered through, moving with precision and speed. The swirling black mass was now directly overhead, the epicenter of the chaos. The power of the Evervale seemed to emanate from it in waves, distorting the air around him, warping the very fabric of reality. Jacob's suit was beginning to struggle against the gravitational pull, its systems buckling under the strain. This wasn't just a fight for Earth, it was a battle for existence itself. Jacob focused on the suit's internal diagnostics. He had studied everything he could about the Evervale, but there was so much unknown about this ancient force. One thing was clear, though. The Evervale wasn't just a being, it was a presence, an entity that existed beyond the physical realm. It had no true form, no boundaries, only the endless hunger to consume. But Jacob couldn't afford to think about the magnitude of the situation. His only focus was to find the heart of this creature's power and sever it. He had one chance, and he needed to make it count. "Here goes nothing," Jacob muttered as he began to approach the center of the Evervale's power. The very air seemed to warp and distort as he moved closer, the energy becoming almost unbearable. Just as he reached the heart of the swirling mass, a deafening roar split the air. A force, powerful and consuming, slammed into Jacob, sending him careening through the atmosphere. His suit's protective systems flared up, struggling to keep him from being torn apart by the raw energy. The dark tendrils of the Evervale surged toward him, intent on engulfing him completely. But Jacob's will was stronger. His body, empowered by the suit, fought back with a ferocity he had never known. "Not today!" He yelled, using every ounce of strength to push through the pain and resistance. His hand shot forward, and the suit's weapon systems activated, firing a concentrated beam of energy directly at the core of the Evervale. The energy crackled as it collided with the darkness, lighting up the sky with an explosion of light. The Evervale howled in fury, its form convulsing as the energy disrupted its connection to the universe. Jacob's heart raced as he poured every bit of power into the attack. The sky above him flickered as reality itself seemed to bend and shudder. Then, something changed. The massive shadow in the sky seemed to flinch, its tendrils pulling back as the core of the Evervale flickered and destabilized. The power of the attack had weakened its anchor, just as Jacob had hoped. But the creature wasn't finished yet. With a final terrifying scream, the Evervale lashed out one last time. It sent a wave of darkness surging toward Jacob, its raw power threatening to swallow him whole. Jacob braced himself, but the suit responded, its nanotechnology pulsing to life, forming an impenetrable shield around him. The darkness crashed into him, pushing him back, but the shield held. The Evervale's grip was weakening. This was his moment. With one final burst of strength, Jacob slammed the power of his suit into the Evervale's core. There was a deafening explosion of light, And then, silence for a brief, breathless moment. The world stood still. Jacob's suit hummed quietly as he floated in the empty space where the Evervale's dark form had once been. The storm clouds began to dissipate, the swirling mass of darkness shrinking and fading away. Earth was safe. The battle was over. Jacob exhaled deeply, allowing himself a moment of relief. He had done it. He had stopped the Evervale. Jacob, Sarah's voice came through the coms, filled with disbelief and awe. Did you do it? Is it over? Jacob smiled, his breath still shaky. It's over, for now. He looked down at the planet below him. Earth had survived. Humanity had survived. The Evervale had been banished back into the void from which it had come. And Jacob, a man who had once only dreamed of peace, had become the one who had saved them all. But as he descended toward the surface, he knew one thing for sure. This battle was won, but the future would hold more challenges. Humanity had proven itself, but the universe was vast, and its threats would never stop coming. Still, as Jacob touched down, surrounded by the cheers of the people who had survived, he knew that whatever came next, humanity would be ready. Together, they would face whatever came from the stars, and they would always fight.